that now. I'll give everyone a minute for those to come through, and then we will get started. Okay, AG, I think we are all ready.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Also with me today is Danielle Hageman-Clark, who's the chief of my Criminal Justice Bureau. I'm Dana Nessel, Michigan Attorney General. First and foremost, I want to thank the families of Oxford for their continued advocacy and their unrelenting calls for accountability and transparency. In 2022, I hosted 2 town halls with many families of the victims and survivors of the Oxford School Shooting at the very same location where today's press conference was held. And it gave me and my department the opportunity to hear directly from those most impacted and to answer as many questions as we possibly could. Following those meetings, I renewed my offer to the Oxford School District to conduct a third-party investigation that the families are requesting today. And while my department has renewed the terms of what a proper investigation would require, we've never withdrawn that offer. Now, I want to be clear that this offer was intended to be an investigation into the procedures, policies, and response leading to that fatal day and following. And it was not necessarily just an offer for a criminal investigation. It was our hope that our additional review could provide many of the answers the families are still seeking today, as well as some guidelines on how our state and our state schools could prevent and protect from another school shooting. Now, these offers were made to the school board and to the criminal investigation and prosecutions being handled by the Oakland County Sheriff's Office and prosecutor. Our involvement on both fronts was soundly rejected, and I want to review that, right? So we offered immediately to help the Oakland County Sheriff's Department in their investigation. They declined. The sheriff flat out refused, said absolutely not. I asked the Oakland County prosecutor if they, desired or were interested in our help. I offered it over and over and over again. Each time, the Oakland County prosecutor refused. And then again, obviously, our multiple requests to do an investigation with the school board. So my office has always respected local authority, and we never use our jurisdiction to supersede local or county level criminal investigations. So once a matter is being reviewed by local law enforcement, my department will only join in or take the lead over a criminal investigation or prosecution after the local authorities have provided a referral and asked us to. To this day, let me make it clear, neither the Oakland County Sheriff or the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office has ever asked us to take over any part of the criminal investigation into what took place in Oxford, nor did they, as I said, accept our multiple offers to help, which again began with direct outreach to the prosecutor by myself to Karen McDonald on November 30th, 2021, and then multiple direct offers in the days and weeks that followed. We can and will accept that referral, presuming that it's coming following their participation in today's press conference, recognizing that we are unfortunately in a very different place today than we were 3 years ago. We share in the family's fatigue over the constant finger pointing and scapegoating in these investigations, and wish our offers to participate at any level had been accepted years ago. For my office to conduct an investigation at this point, nearly 3 years after the tragedy, will definitely be more difficult than if it had been allowed to begin when our earliest or repeated offers were initially made. Keeping in mind, of course, that the criminal statute of limitations is only 6 years. Any complete investigation by my office would require a number of things. First of all, Oakland County would have to turn over their over 400 pieces of evidence admitted in the prosecution against the Crumbly family, as well as all of their evidence from their years-long investigation and prosecutions, including any documents, correspondences, testimony, transcripts, and many more types of evidence, whether they were admissible in court or not. We would also need the cooperation of the Oakland County Sheriff and the Oakland County prosecutor, as well as local law enforcement, and be able to interview all of their relevant staff, including Sheriff Bouchard and Prosecutor McDonald, in order to evaluate their response and their investigation and prosecution. We would need the Oxford School Board to waive attorney-client privilege and to provide that everything be turned over, and more importantly, the things that were not turned over to Guidepost. We'd require the willing participation of all witnesses, including staff and others, including the dozens who did not cooperate with the Guidepost review. And also, we'd need an expedited appropriation from the state legislature to conduct this work within the limited time we have left, due to the fact that we'd have to expedite this because the statute of limitations is already halfway through or more. Now, to address points raised about the grounds upon which we were able to advance in the past school board participation, authority to investigate in an absence of probable cause to demonstrate a crime has occurred that is required to further this investigation, I do believe the rules for a criminal investigation are being conflated with what is required to provide a meaningful review to better inform school safety policies and legislative action. So on the question of participation by local authorities, the Guidepost report is an excellent illustration of the limitations of a review that does not have the power to compel participation. The subpoena power of my office, a critical topic of discussion today during the earlier press conference, can only be triggered where there is probable cause to believe a crime has been committed. But under the circumstances where such probable cause exists, my authorities are not expansive beyond those that are already held by the county prosecutor and sheriff, who currently have the investigation and have investigated this matter thoroughly for years and years now. If there is evidence of or probable cause to believe a crime has been committed, these local authorities could be investigating right now, rather than encouraging the investigation should be conducted elsewhere. That the sheriff and the prosecutor's office who stand behind these families today, who contend that there is evidence or grounds for probable cause within the Guidepost report or other investigation that a specific crime has been committed, though neither the sheriff nor prosecutor has continued their investigation, is quite frankly very confusing, and a question that we have in my office at this very preliminary stage. Now, our office, our goal is always to be open and honest with the families of crime victims on what we can do, but more importantly, what we can't do. And if the sheriff and prosecutor do not suspect specific crimes at this stage, if there's nothing upon which to predicate a criminal investigation that has subpoena power, that's not going to change when the case is handed over and the case files come to my department. And if that is the case, they should tell these families up front. It would be wrong for them not to communicate that. And the families deserve better than that. So with that, I am open to any questions that anyone has in regard to this matter and what our department can do or not do and what we're prepared to do.
Everyone, if you will please use the raise hand feature, we will call on you. We do have over 30 people on this call.
Where is it?
So please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, and we will call on you to ask your questions. Thank you. Sean Lay, I believe you had a question. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity, AG Nessel. Good to see you. So just to boil things down, I've got two quick questions. As Attorney General, AG Nessel, what you're saying is, and can you help me understand, hey, I'm the Attorney General of the state of Michigan, I'm going to do this, launch an investigation and find out what happened before, during, and after, and exactly what the families are kind of asking. Can you do that? I know you explained rather well why you can't, but isn't this something you could just do if you wanted to do it? And then, aside from this, Karen, Drew, and I are asking if there's any update, please, on Stalitzky and Supreme Court, please.
Okay, so a few different things, right? First of all, for us to perform a comprehensive investigation, we need the complete cooperation of the Sheriff's Department and the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office. Now, here's where this gets a little complicated, right? They have to turn over everything they have to us, or we would have to start our investigation from scratch. Again, putting us at a significant disadvantage because it's 3 years later now. So generally what happens, I don't want to say generally, always what has happened in my 6 years anyway that I've been Attorney General is that you get a formal request for a referral from either the Sheriff's Department or from the Prosecutor's Office. Now, neither one of those departments has reached out to us to say, hey, we really like you to do your own investigation. Here's why, and we're willing to provide all of our documentation, and you can interview anyone on our staff that was involved in this. They've still not done that. All we know is that they being the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, specifically Karen McDonald, sent a letter, I guess, confidential memorandum to the family that they did not send to us, talking about what our authority was, and I suspect encouraging them to ask for some sort of a referral to our office. And I guess my question is, will we get complete cooperation from the Sheriff's Department and from the Prosecutor's Office? And if that's what they want, why not just ask us? Why make the families ask? I don't understand that. We've gotten referrals from many, many investigative agencies and prosecutors' offices, at least in the last 6 years, again, that I've been there. So we've done it over and over again. They could ask directly. Both Sheriff Bouchard has my personal phone number, so does Prosecutor McDonald, but yet they've never made that request. And I think it's unfortunate that they would sort of force the families into this position of having to make that request. So firstly, we do need a referral because that is our policy and they're well aware of that. We've never received that. Secondly, we need all of the evidence that they compiled during the course of their time investigating that case. Third, again, we would need to have full cooperation by the Sheriff's Department and by the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office. But in addition to that, and I just want to make it clear, what I think the families would never want to see happen is for us to sort of spin our wheels and look at all the same things that have been looked at repeatedly by both law enforcement as well as Guidepost Solutions, only to arrive at the exact same place where you still have a number of people that refuse to be interviewed. And again, I just want to make it clear, the authority of the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office and the authority of the Oakland County Sheriff's Department is exactly the same as our authority. So I guess my question is, if those entities could not get these people to cooperate, how will we be able to do it? We don't have some specific statute on the books that allows us to have civil authority to launch a civil investigation. We just have the criminal authority, and that's exactly what they have. So I guess my question is to Sheriff Bouchard, if there are additional things that you think need to be investigated, and specifically I'm talking about any crimes committed by members of the school board or the administration or staff at Oxford High School, why didn't you investigate it? I mean, I'm open to having that conversation with Sheriff Bouchard, but I want to know, please, if you want us to investigate it, why didn't you investigate it in the first place? So that is a concern to me. And also, I'd like to know, how are we, if the power to use a subpoena, an investigative subpoena to compel testimony requires probable cause that a crime was committed, what crime is it? And again, why didn't you do it? So, again, I'm not trying to create further hardship for the families. I just want to make sure that it's understood what powers we have in our office and what powers we don't have. And that's why we've been in these conversations with, the governor's office, with the legislature to say, if you want to provide us with specific statutory authority that allows for us to interview these witnesses without the same, again, criminal authority that creates this situation where you really need to be investigating a specific crime. And it's something that, again, if it's just for policies and practices and procedures and not for us to be investigating a crime, we need a specific statute on the books that allows us to do that, because otherwise you're running into a situation where people are not going to be interviewed either because they're afraid of criminal liability or they're afraid of civil liability. So they just won't do it. And you can understand sort of from their perspective why they wouldn't do it if they're fearing those things. That's why we need a statute on the books that allows us to do that and sort of maybe makes those folks exempt from criminal or from civil liability so that they have to be interviewed. Danielle, did I miss anything in that response? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. I think the reporter Lay also asked about an update on what Galloway and Danielle Suzuki as it relates to the U.S. Supreme Court application.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
haven't heard anything back yet other than the defense has been required to file a response.
Thanks, Danielle.
Okay, next we have Tressa with the Free Press.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks,
Great.
Teresa.
One day, the day after James Crumbley was convicted, Karen McDonald came. This would not be bringing any criminal charges against any school officials because they didn't find that it was warranted. I have a couple of questions. One, do you feel that she's now shifting the blame to you and asking you to do what she wouldn't do? And number two, her office also, or we will not hold against you what you tell us in the future. And that essentially protected state officials from liability. So Mike, but is now someone asking you to do that. And number two, her office also protected school officials from liability, yet she's now, seems to me, to be asking you to look into that. What is your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, those are really concerning points that you just brought up, and certainly ones that we've thought of, right? Again, if the Oakland County prosecutor could not find crimes that these school officials committed, I don't know why they would expect that anything would change when we take the investigation, unless there was something woefully insufficient about their review or their analysis of the case. And if so, I would have expected, Prosecutor McDonald to reach out and say, we're having trouble with this. Can you help us? Or we'd like to take you up on the offer you made previously to assist us in this process. And they never did that. And yeah, you're right. Those Castigar letters and interviews are a source of concern. Had the offer been accepted initially, I think we would better be in a place to weigh in and say, we don't think this is wise that you Castigar these folks, and whether or not there was immunity that was provided. I think there's been some back and forth as to, was this immunity that was granted or was it not? It would have been a little bit easier if we were in on those discussions from the very beginning, but now we're left with the place that we are. And it's a little concerning to me to have Prosecutor McDonald saying, we would like the AG's office to do something that we ourselves didn't do. Again, now, if she were to say, there are things we think we may have missed, you have better expertise than we do, that would be a reason that, I think it would be important for us to take a look. I just wish she would have accepted our offers in the first place so that we weren't behind the 8 ball now 3 years later. As you know, you get 3 years into investigation, memories fade. People don't have the same type of recollection that they had immediately after an event occurred. So it puts us at a significant disadvantage to where her office was when they first started to evaluate all of this.
Thank you. Next, Courtney Bennett, please.
Yes, Attorney General Nessel, you mentioned that you would need approval from the Oxford School Board in order to do an investigation, and also the Michigan legislature. Back in August, the school board actually voted to mandate the legislature to approve an independent review of the shooting itself. What would be the steps that you would need at this point beyond just the Oakland County office as well as the prosecutor's office? Would you still need that approval from the school board as well as the Michigan legislature?
Yeah, that's some important points to make here. And I think that in large part, my statements in regard to this matter are informed by our investigation into Michigan State University involving the Nassar investigation. Now, as you recall, Michigan State University actually requested that investigation. But then after the investigation began, they stopped cooperating with it. So here we were in this place where witnesses were refusing to testify who were MSU employees. and they refused to share with us many, many documents, including those that were protected by attorney-client privilege. So even though a school district or a university says, oh, we're asking for this investigation, they can later on say, yeah, but we're not legally required to provide these witnesses testify or to turn over these documents, and they can simply fail to do it. So just by asking for the investigation, it's kind of not enough for us, because we don't want to get in a situation where, now state tax dollars have been utilized to further review this matter, and we end up in the exact same place that we were before with literally no further information at all whatsoever. I don't think anybody wants that. That's going to be, I think, really frustrating for the family members. And I think it's going to be upsetting for, members of the public at large if we get to that place. So again, that's why we were asking for the legislature to provide us with some specific authority that we don't have right now. And it might be something where there's a state law that says where there is an investigation into into a school shooting, that the school board is not protected by attorney-client privilege, or that we have the ability to force people to testify or to provide interviews to us without having, of course, this information's probable cause that a crime was committed. And so, those might be important things that allow us to do more than they could do through the, review by the Sheriff's Department and the Oakland County Prosecutor and Guidepost Solutions. But if we don't have that extra stuff, I don't know how we get any further along than, both those these three different entities did in terms of their investigations. So you can understand how difficult it would be at that point for us to do anything further or anything more than has already been done without additional authority. The other thing I would say is this is going to be an expensive endeavor at this point. And again, we sort of have truncated time, not just because there's only 3 years left on any statute of limitations, less than that for any criminal matters, but also I only have 2 years left in office. So, this is a major investigation that we have to do in an expedited fashion. And my question, I guess, is going to be now, where is that money going to come from to do this really quick investigation? Where, will I have to shut down other areas of my office? And instead of, some of our investigations into sexual assault cases or prosecutions into human trafficking or things of that nature, will we have to divert those resources to do this very, very quick investigation into the Oxford case? And so, of course, I think the best thing would be for a quick appropriation from the legislature that would allow us to sort of hire additional staff in order to do this quick review. So those are some of the things I can think of that I think would be important for us to have. Kim, you still there?
Yep. Zachary Priest.
Yeah, so I know you said that it seems like a lot of things might need to go right for an investigation to happen, but let's say that all those things did fall in place. If it was up to you entirely, would you want to go forward with an investigation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it, it'd be an incredibly important investigation. And again, to look into, of course, all the things that went wrong that, weren't just in the wake of leading up to how this event occurred, but also what happened afterwards. And by that, I mean, what is reported to be a disorganized and slow response by the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. I definitely would want to talk to, staff with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, find out what happened, when, and why did it happen that way. And I'd want to interview Sheriff Bouchard in particular and find out what went wrong in the response. What could your office, your department have done better in order to respond as quickly as possible, in coordination also with the local authorities? Kim, you gonna jump in or should I?
Nope, sorry. For some reason, I'm unmuting and you guys can't hear me. Jennifer Chambers with the news. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hi, Dana, Attorney General Nessel, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you. So today at the press conference, the family said this goes beyond criminal prosecution. They want data, they want an understanding and accountability of what went wrong at the school level in order to change school shootings. And, you know, they've talked about threat assessment plans, emergency operation plans, and the guidepost report pointed out a lot of failures. What could your office do on that front, outside the criminal responsibility? What do you think you could do to come up forward to prevent a school shooting?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Jennifer, and that's why we've been asking for a different structure in terms of how not just this school shooting, potentially any school shootings can be properly investigated. And I think that involves having a lot of different actors, not just folks from the Department of Attorney General involved, but potentially people from the Department of Health and Human Services, the Board of Education, and many others who are part of this this team that we could put together. And, you know, Danielle, I wonder if you could jump in and talk a little bit about our death review teams and some of the things that we do to investigate other types of situations where, again, it's not about simply criminal conduct, but, you know, how do we best respond to these types of situations and what do we do to prevent them?
Sure. Out in the world, there are things known as domestic violence fatality review teams and child death review teams. Those teams are made up, they're statutorily enabled, and so there's legislation that dictates their purpose and their goal, but also who is involved in those responses. They are made up of professionals, including medical examiner, prosecutors, policymakers, Department of Health and Human Services, or DHHS folks. They review cases of, in a domestic violence review team, of a situation where a perpetrator kills their spouse. Sometimes then they kill themselves, making it so that there isn't a criminal response because there is nobody to hold accountable, but really analyzing those cases individually to figure out what went wrong, what resources were available that were not taken advantage of and why, what resources were not available because they don't exist, and how can we make domestic violence rates go down by supporting survivors and their families. Child death review teams are similar in the sense of they look at individual cases to figure out what happened to these children and what can be done so that our children are still here with us. A good example of a child death review having actual policy outcomes is that of unsafe sleep. They look at cases where children, back in the day, it was considered SIDS, where somebody, a child died suddenly and there was no explainable reason for why that child died. That led to more education around safe sleep habits. Make sure your child is sleeping in a crib. Make sure there's no bumper pads. Make sure there's no stuffed animals, that they're on their back. Because what they found was that a lot of times it wasn't necessarily a SIDS outcome, it was the child was pressed against the crib and was unable to breathe. Seatbelt usage, I think, is another one that has come out of child death review teams. Utilizing a seatbelt every time you get in a car drove down the rates of children being killed in car accidents. I do think that there is a place for mass shootings in schools to have a similar opportunity to look at individual responses. What happened? What can be done to make sure that our children are safe in the future? Are there gaps in safety concerns, and how can those be addressed? Are there policies around mental health engagement for children at a younger age? Are there opportunities to listen to the experts outside of a criminal investigation or even a civil investigation, but really bringing those experts to the table to be able to figure out the best way forward?
Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, so something like that is what we would envision. And we would, you know, we'd love to work with the legislature and the governor in finding a way, you know, a path forward to have sort of a review team of that type. And again, it's one where the reason why those types of teams are successful is because they're not about evaluating criminal prosecution or civil liability. I would say what kind of makes it different from the requests that we had today from the family members, but also that we've had from the family members in the past, is that they were looking for something to assist them in holding, say, school officials accountable, either from a criminal responsibility perspective or civil liability. And the difference in those, domestic violence or child death reviews is that, those don't involve civil liability or criminal responsibility. So if I guess the families would have to sort of make a decision even in terms of what they wanted. If this is the type of investigation that doesn't involve those things, do you still even want it? And if you do want it, like, how do we work together with the legislature to put together the kind of team that would be needed? And again, we couldn't do this by ourselves. We have at our office, we have, investigators, and we have prosecutors. And we also have civil attorneys, but that doesn't make them experts in some of these other areas. And so we would need more expertise from other folks, many of whom are already in some area of state government, but others who would probably have to be brought in. Kim, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. First is from Rick Pluta, who asks, if we get the sort of criminal authority you are talking about, do you run into an ex post facto law problem?
Yeah, well, I don't know that we're asking for additional criminal authority. I think what we've talked about is a different type of authority that's not criminal in nature. So in an ex post facto, I mean, normally those are that's where you make something, say, illegal that wasn't previously illegal. So you can't, you can't review it from the perspective of criminal responsibility if it wasn't a crime before. And the other thing is statute of limitations. We run into that sometimes. And, when we change the statute of limitations, it starts at the moment that that's changed, but you can't necessarily go back and review cases that previously would have been SOL'd out. So I don't know that we're talking about changing criminal authority here. And I don't know that we can do that. Danielle, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're not talking about ex post facto in terms of changing the law around creating new crimes. There have been a couple of crimes that have been laid out, potentially misconduct in office as well as willful neglect of duty. I think what we're asking for is an increased ability more on a civil side to bring folks in to discuss stuff when they discuss facts and information that they knew. But I don't think that qualifies as an ex post facto.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment.
Okay. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. We have one final question. Tressa Baldas with Free Press has asked for one follow-up. Tressa?
Hi, Dana. So before we leave this press conference, I'm sure a lot of us are leaving with maybe some confusion. So just for clarity, one, are you willing to give these parents what they're asking for? And that is a state investigation into this. And two, if you are, if you could just list a couple of things that you have to do first to do it. I don't want to leave with any ambiguity here.
Right. No, I understand, Teresa, but I do, without due respect, I think I answered that question already a couple times.
Sorry. Never mind. I must have missed it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, we need a formal referral from the prosecutor's office or from the sheriff's department, and we need their commitment that they are going to share absolutely every item of evidence that they've received, and also allow us to interview members of their staff. So that's a commitment we absolutely have to have. Otherwise, we're just going to be spinning our wheels here, or we'll be trying to recreate the wheel, and recreate investigations that have already been done. So I'm sure nobody wants that. But again, I just don't want us to get into a situation where we move forward we spent a lot of time, energy, and effort reviewing everything that the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office did, everything that the Oakland County Sheriff's Department did already. And then when we get to the point where we're looking at new material, we are in the exact same place that they were. And again, I have to sort of, I think it, you know, it behooves me to reiterate, I'm not clear on why the Oakland County Sheriff's Department discontinued their investigation if there was probable cause to believe that these other crimes were committed, these crimes such as, of course, misconduct in office or neglect of duty or any of those things. If they had probable cause that those crimes were committed, you know, why were those cases denied by the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office? Or if they had not completed their investigation, why didn't they complete their investigation? And again, it would be strange for them to have done this, you know, very comprehensive review and then, you know, looked into the Crumbly parents, looked into Ethan Crumbly, but then just stopped and said, we're not looking any further than that. Our only intention is just to look at some criminal actors, but not all criminal actors relevant to this incident. So we really need to have, you know, their cooperation. We need to know sort of why they did what they did when they did it. I would like to know from the sheriff, you know, why did you prevent us from assisting you and being part of this investigation in the first place, but now you're calling for us to investigate? That's just a very odd set of circumstances, and we've never encountered that before. At least I never have. You know, I've never made an offer to assist in an investigation and been denied the way that we were. I think that Sheriff Bouchard actually said that he thought that our, you know, that our request to assist was political in nature, and he was denying it. And he said, if I want help from anyone, it's the feds. They're the only ones I would ask. So why are you now part of this press conference while you're asking the state AG to take it and not the Department of Justice? I'm not clear on that. So this was confusing to me on a lot of different levels, to be candid with you. But beyond that, again, I do not want to get to a place where we recreate the wheel and, you know, we put together as much of an investigation as we can. But then when we get to those individuals who refuse to be interviewed before, they can refuse to be interviewed again because we don't have any more authority than the Sheriff's Department or the prosecutor's office has. And again, from the perspective of, you know, Prosecutor McDonald, I guess I would like to ask her, you know, if she would contact me or call me or want to discuss this with me at all, which I'd be absolutely open to in the event that she was interested. You know, I would just ask her, what civil authority do we have to do the things that you think we need to do? And if we have authority only through the criminal statutes, why did you not do that? It doesn't really make sense to me. So again, this press conference by the parents and the fact that you had members of both the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office and the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, I think leaves more questions than answers. If what you want us to do is to, you know, put together something brand new that involves brand new laws on the books, putting together the type of teams that, you know, that Danielle Hageman-Clark spoke about in order for us to specifically have better tools at our disposal to investigate school shootings, then, you know, by all means, I think you should be tenacious advocates on behalf of that, and we'll join you in that effort.
Can you hear me real quick?
Yes.
To you, is Karen McDonald playing politics with this issue?
I can't answer that question because she's not talked to me about this. And again, that's very unique. Most of the time what happens is a county prosecutor will call over, and in some cases they'll say, we'd like to work with you on this, you know, and we do that all the time. We have some incredibly successful collaborations, and I would just point to a double homicide that we successfully prosecuted together with the Alpena County prosecutor. She asked for our assistance, and we sat side by side at council table and were able to get convictions on some really horrendous crimes. I'll point to another recent case that we just put out press releases on, where we partnered with the Midland County prosecutor on some check theft cases. And he asked for assistance, and we joined together, and we, were very successful in terms of, issuing charges and receiving convictions on those cases. So again, it's just confusing to me if Prosecutor McDonald wanted our assistance, why she wouldn't have just picked up the phone and given me a call, and we could have talked it through and, and not hash this out quite so publicly as we are right now. I did feel the need to respond because there was a press conference and, she had her staff there. So I guess that's why I felt the need to publicly respond to this, but also to point out all the concerns that I have. So when you say, is this political? I don't know what her motivations are. I can't tell you. I've not spoken to her about it.
Thank you, everyone. That will be the end of our press conference today. If you have any further questions, please reach out to agpress@mi.gov. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.